Okay guys, here's our lesson on subtracting decimals. This is video number 4 for this. So we're subtracting decimals. Okay, we have learning targets. 2 learning targets today. Students can subtract decimals by lining up decimal points, and students can justify reasonableness by estimating. So make sure that you write down the subtracting decimals at the top of your piece of paper, and make sure you write down both those learning targets. And when you're done, you can move on. I am going to move on, so if you need to pause, go ahead and do that right now. Okay, next part. Here's how you just subtract decimals. Very similar to adding decimals, so make sure you write this down in your notes. To subtract decimals, number 1, you need to line up your decimal points. Number 2, you need to annex any zeros that are needed. That means placing zeros to make sure that there's numbers in every place value that you're subtracting here. Step 3, you're going to subtract the decimals, and again, you may borrow over the decimal point. The decimal point is not a wall, so you can borrow from the numbers on the left side of the decimal point if needed. And the last thing I want you to do is check your reasonableness by estimating. Okay, you need to write those steps down in your notes. If you need to pause, go ahead. Otherwise, I am moving on to the next example. Alright, example number 1 here. We're just going to find the difference and then estimate the check. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is line up my decimal points. So I'm going to do 22 and 76 hundredths minus 13 and 4 tenths. Okay, I'm going to annex a 0 underneath the 6 so they line up. And now I'm going to subtract them. 6 minus 0 is 6. 7 minus 4 is 3. Move my decimal point down. I cannot do 2 minus 3, so I have to borrow. So I make the 2 a 12, and I make that 2 a 1. 12 minus 3 is 9. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I end up with 9 and 36 hundredths is my final answer. Okay, now I'm going to estimate to check my answer. So I'm going to round. So 22 and 76 hundredths rounds to 23. Minus 13 and 4 tenths is going to stay at 13. Subtract those and you get 10. And 9 and 36 hundredths close to 10. So my answer is reasonable. Okay. In part B here, I'm going to subtract these. Okay, oops, that should be a minus sign. Forgot to change that. I'm going to subtract these. So that's going to be 105 and 3 tenths minus 72 and 492 thousandths. Okay, you cannot change the order of these when you're subtracting. So I have to put that. Line up your decimal points. 72 and 492 thousandths. Definitely have to annex zeros in this example. And I got to put them there. Okay. Now here's the deal, guys. When I borrow. So this 0 is going to become a 10 because I'm borrowing. Now I'm borrowing from a 0, so in order to do that, I have to make that a 9. So the first one you borrow from is 10. Any zeros thereafter is going to be a 9 in a string, so I just have 1. Okay, and then this 3 now becomes a 2. Now I can subtract. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 9 is 0. Oop, I cannot do 2 minus 4, so I have to borrow from this 5. That's going to become a 4. And that 2 now becomes a 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. Decimal point moves down. 4 minus 2 is 2. I cannot do 0 minus 7, so that becomes 10. Get rid of that. 10 minus 7 is 3. And I have 0 minus 0, so I get 32 and 808 thousandths. Okay. Now I'm going to check for reasonableness. 105 and 3 tenths stays at 105. Minus 72 and 492 thousandths stays at 72. Subtract those real quick. 5 minus 2 is 3. 10 minus 7 is 3. 33 is about 32 and 808 thousandths. So my answer is reasonable. Okay. If you need to pause that, go ahead and pause. Otherwise, I'm moving down to the next set of examples. Okay. In example 2, guys, I'm subtracting here, so I'm evaluating. So I'm going to plug that number in for x, which is called substituting. So my first example, I'm going to do 65 minus, remember there's a decimal point after here, and I have to do 51 and 87 hundredths. I'm going to annex some zeros over there. Okay, so again here I cannot do 10 minus 0 minus 7, so I have to make that a 10, and then I have to make that a 9, and then borrow from the 5 and make that a 4. Okay. Now I can do 10 minus 7, and that's 3. 9 minus 8 is 1. Decimal point moves down. 4 minus 1 is 3, and 6 minus 5 is 1. I get 13 and 13 hundredths. And that is my final answer. You do not have to estimate on these, although if you were to, you would get 65 minus 52, and that is 65, excuse me, minus 52, and that's 13, and that makes it reasonable. Although you do not have to estimate, so you might just want to do it in your head. Okay, for B, I would put my X numbers, so I do 51 and 87 hundredths minus 45 and 723 thousandths. Subtract these, so I put a 0, annex a 0 there. That becomes 10, this 7 becomes a 6, take 1 away when you borrow. 10 minus 3 is 7, 6 minus 2 is 4, 8 minus 7 is 1, decimal point moves down. That has to become 11, that has to become 4. 11 minus 5 is 6, and 4 minus 4 is 0, so you get 6 and 147 thousandths. Okay? Pause if you need to, otherwise I am done. Have a great night, and we will see you guys tomorrow.